I found out about what had happened in Seattle, and I didn't really...
What did Eddie Vedder really think after Kurt Cobain's death shook the music world? In this video, we focus on Eddie's candid and often emotional reflections on losing Kurt. Let's hear what Eddie and Pearl Jam said about Kurt and his passing. When Pearl Jam first broke through, Kurt Cobain didn't exactly hide his mixed feelings. Cobain was openly critical of what he saw as the band's more mainstream sound. Still, over time his stance softened, and he acknowledged there were people in the group he genuinely respected. Here's what Eddie Vedder had to say when asked about Kurt in 2020.
Did you take it personally at the time when the band started out, and like a guy like Kurt Cobain would publicly dismiss your band, say you guys were too commercial or too pop or whatever the fuck he said?
I probably could have agreed with some of the things he said, and there was also a history of, you know, some of the local bands, and one of my favorite Seattle bands was Mudhoney, and there was a little bit of a faction of this one side of Seattle music here, and ours didn't fit as well into that, which was fine.
Right.
But also Mudhoney, I was so grateful to have those guys as friends, and so I think the only thing that bothered me about that was because it was more public and people reacting to it. You know, it wasn't like between us, or that stuff wasn't really going back and forth with us. And I think there was a certain writer who kind of pulled a quote of Jeff Amos out, and then pulled a quote of Kurt's out, and then kind of, you know, that made for interesting press. But, you know, really, I always felt like it was kind of us against the world, like our town against the world, not our band against another band. We were just, I still think back and have always been grateful that there was like a real scene. I mean, it was like there was music.
Thanks to Politico magazine and some long-buried interview footage, we actually know how Eddie Vedder reacted when he heard the news about Kurt Cobain's passing. According to Politico, when lead singer of Pearl Jam, Eddie Vedder, heard about Nirvana frontman Kurt Cobain's suicide in the spring of 1994, he happened to be in Washington. When I first found out, I was in a hotel room, and I just tore the place to shreds. Then I just kind of sat in the rubble, which somehow felt right. Like my world at the moment, recalled Vedder. The next day after Kurt's passing, Pearl Jam visited the White House. We went into his outer room and hung out for a little bit, and then Clinton came out in his Arkansas sweats. We all went into the Oval Office and did a group photo, and he said that Chelsea really wanted to go to the Pearl Jam concert, but Hillary thought better of it. Chelsea was still pretty young. At the end of it, they asked us to get people out of the room, and everyone left so Ed Vedder and the president could talk. When Ed left, he turned, and I remember him saying, "See ya, Bill," said John Hoyt, political and community advisor for Pearl Jam. According to some sources, like Pearl Jam's then manager, Clinton asked Eddie if he should address the nation about Cobain's death. Eddie told Clinton to not do it. Here's some archived footage of Eddie talking about Kurt's passing.
Saturday Night Live this past weekend, and at the end of the show, while cast members and band mingled on stage, singer Eddie Vedder opened his shirt to reveal the letter K drawn on his t-shirt over his heart, a quiet salute to departed Nirvana frontman Kurt Cobain.
To be honest, right now, we had 4 shows left on this thing when I found out about what had happened in Seattle, and I didn't really think that we should even play the rest of those shows. So as it is, I'm going to get through these shows. It seems like it's the best thing to do for us and for the people coming to see the shows. It's been healthy for all of us, though incredibly difficult. And after that, I might not, or we as a band, we might not play for a very long time. I'm just honest, you know. Take big deep breaths between the songs. Everyone can see, like, wow, what a trip. I just tell them, you know, this is a really hard thing, but it's either this or quit. And somebody that I think Kurt really liked a lot, this guy named Daniel Johnston, who Chris Cornell turned me on to. He's got a line in one of his songs, you know, like how he's a quitter, quit this, quit that, quit everything. But he says, you know, the one thing I'm gonna quit being a quitter. That's the only thing to quit.
What do you remember about that time now, Eddie?
Oh shoot! I have a couple of voicemail messages from Kurt on a tape somewhere. Back when your voicemail was on a cassette. There was some cool there was a Valentine's party at Novoselic's house, and there's a jukebox in the basement, and Tad and Kurt and were wrestling in the corner, and then somehow I got involved in that, and then it was just great times, and one weird thing I remember, there's this thing in Japan called, is it Yoyogi Park, Jeff? Is that what it is? Yoyogi Park?
Yeah.
So it's groups, it's kind of funded by the city or whatever, and it's like this whole street. It's like 3 football fields long, and there's bands on both sides, separated by a 20-foot walkway to walk into, and it's, you walk down that street, and it was like turning the radio dial. There was a In Sync kind of cover band, or maybe it was before that, so New Kids on the Block, whatever, and then another band, and then another, and then Elvis impersonators, and then a da-da-da, and there was this like a Nirvana cover band. The drummer was total metal. The bass player had a thing going on, but the guitar player was exact Kurt. He's a Japanese version of Kurt, and he had the cardigan and bit of a haircut and the whole thing, and the Converse, and in between songs he would kind of be very dour and walk back to his amp and switch it and then come back and do the thing. And I just wanted to tell him, like, Kurt's not that sad. Like, he's a good person. Like, he's funny. Like, everyone's funny. You watch clips of that band or interviews or whatever, they're fucking funny. And, it was just weird to think that everybody's, and of course the way things turned out, it didn't help with the kind of caricature of it all. But it wasn't like that. It wasn't. They were. I was just very grateful even to have my little bits of time. It was enough to make me deeply regret everything that happened and wish that it wouldn't have.
Kurt Cobain's near-fatal overdose of sedatives and champagne in Rome last month was not an accident. The LA Times yesterday reported it was a suicide attempt with a note. Cobain was admitted to the hospital on Friday, 4th of March, and he lapsed into a coma. The following day, doctors gave the first indication that he was on the road to recovery. Cobain was discharged from the hospital on March the 8th. The Times also said Cobain's wife, singer Courtney Love, his bandmates and others who worked with him tried to persuade him to get treatment. At the time, both Nirvana's management and record company said that Cobain had inadvertently overdosed on prescription drugs and alcohol while suffering from the effects of flu and fatigue. The lead singer of Nirvana was found dead in his home last Friday from a self-inflicted gunshot blast. For Seattle rockers Pearl Jam, the death of Kurt Cobain has proved to be a very emotional experience. Pearl Jam emerged from the obscurity of Seattle soon after Nirvana had put Seattle on the music map. Although both bands have never had an easy relationship, the loss of Cobain has shaken them. Pearl Jam are currently winding up their American tour, and for them, touring at a time like this is proving to be a very difficult experience. Bass player Jeff Ament spoke to Vanessa Warwick just before their Boston gig.
Pretty intense thing to deal with, just even being out here with Mudhoney and kind of being with a group of people that have kind of coexisted with their band for the last 7 or 8 years, and I'm really thinking about Chris and Dave and kind of the people that were kind of around him. It's pretty intense. I think a lot about Andy, and just having dealt with that, and Mother Love Bone, and I don't know, it just brings up a lot of kind of sour feelings and emotions, and it's just going to be different. It's just going to be weird, and we're just trying to get through it. It's just a little slice of reality that just doesn't really sit well. I don't really understand a lot of those really extreme emotions, so it's frustrating to me too. It's, not being able to really grasp, what was going through his head.
In the end, the story between Eddie Vedder and Kurt Cobain wasn't about rivalry, it was about growth. They may have started off on uneasy footing, but over time, there was a real sense of mutual respect that quietly took hold. Eddie never pretended the early tension wasn't there, but he's also been clear about the admiration he had for Kurt as an artist and as a person. Were you aware that Eddie and Kurt had such a good relationship? Let me know down in the comments.